those buttons don't work on this. My Stream Deck buttons don't work on this this screen. But that's okay because we are now live. I see meters moving. Meter check 1, check 2, check 3. I still don't know why sound's playing double from that one. That's okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to Running Wild, episode 7, which is crazy. I think. I am your host, Jared, aka Quinn, the Elf Ranger, and I am joined by 2 incredible people. One incredible person and a really nice person. I'm not going to tell you which is which.
Well, I'm an asshole, so we.
Speaking of assholes,
I'm pretty sure I'm an asshole today for sure.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Well, let's start with asshole number 1, Bisbo. Eric.
What's up?
Welcome.
I'm Eric, aka asshole number 1.
Asshole number 1.
Bisbo,
Arsehole.
Yeah.
Arsehole number 2, our DM James. Hey James.
Hi, asshole number 2.
Joining us from the other side of the world. Well, yes.
Literally, yeah. Pretty much.
No matter what, when we're all on screen together, someone's joining someone from the other side of the world, which is kind of crazy to think about. This is our very chill, very mellow, Running Wild recap and just discussion about D&D, the game, tabletop. You know, with Eric here, I'm sure we'll end up talking about Pathfinder a little bit. You know, I'm just joking. So I guess we can just dive right in. This music is making me feel like I'm talking like a late night, like Frasier, like a late night psychiatrist, you know, which is like
there
very.
Music?
There is. You can't hear it. It's not playing for you guys. It's just playing for our fans.
100%. Okay.
Oh, I hope it's playing for the fans. I'll be honest with you, it might not be. I don't always check the audio for the Running Wild stream, so sometimes it's a bit of a gamble what we walk away with. But episode 7. I mean, talk about the RP, right? I mean, that's pretty much what we ended up doing for 3.5 hours, and
It was great.
it was awesome. I was so, I think, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Comforting, or like I know this word, cathartic. Thank you. I know this word. And it starts with a long rest, which I think is, just incredible.
You said second, but I think that was our third. I just feel like second. 2 long rests in I don't know how many.
I think it's only the windmill. Only the windmill is when we took a break, right?
Windmill, the tavern. That's it.
Really?
So I felt like after 7 weeks you should have your second long rest. I felt that was a reasonable thing. Yeah.
I should start by saying, James, our professional DM, you can hire him at any time if you want to run your games, and I guarantee you he'll give you more long rests than he gives us. I think. Yes. I think that's in the contract somewhere. So read between the fine lines. But yeah, so we wake up, long rest, and even better than that is a level up. But before we get into that, there's this chaotic noise coming from this kobold tent. Who, again, I don't know if you pissed off James, but he didn't even give you a room. He threw you in the hallway.
And, he threw me right away in the open. I rolled with it though. Yeah, I had my tent. The tent actually ended up.
Cardinal rules of dungeon mastering there, like 2 cardinal rules of dungeon mastering. Don't tell a player how they feel, and don't assume don't set up a player for something that they might be uncomfortable with, like a character. And I did both of them. I'm like, all right, Esmeralda, you feel weird because you're like, and then Bisbo, you're out in the open in the middle of nowhere, and both players were like, nope, not doing that. Like, nope.
But we rolled with it really quickly. I think that was fine. Like, there was no,
and I don't think it was so far.
I was like, we didn't really quite know the layout of the place, so I thought having the tent was actually kind of funny.
Yeah, because we did have some map. We had map issues 2 sessions ago, so we actually never, besides the quick image I think you posted to us, we didn't really get a good look at the map. Which it's fine. But that's an interesting point because I think I have a bad habit of doing that, where I'm like, I read these characters and I've played with the characters for a while, and I'm like, I feel like you would be uncomfortable in this situation, but you tell me how you feel. Like, am I projecting there? Like, is that okay if you kind of know the character? Like, I guess it's a tough line to draw,
I tend to do it more in scene setting, like when you're opening up a game to begin with,
Yeah.
or if
Yeah.
you're cutting a scene. I just find it easier for me to visualize it if the players are acting as if I prefer to think of it as a movie rather than a portrait. And
Sure.
by doing that, you have to project some level of action or some level of scene to get everyone involved in it. And I don't tend to like to start with static scenery. I like to have characters moving in my descriptions, which makes it a bit tricky because you do take a bit of agency away from the players. You're making an assumption about how they'll walk or how they'll react or how they'll interact with an environment, which makes it a little bit tricky. But yeah, you guys roll with it pretty well.
My thing was like the thing with this, Jared, is I had this idea when I was leveling up. Like I think on the Sunday before not the game, like 2 weeks ago, it was like I had the idea to. I had a bunch of different things I was deciding between. First of all, for leveling up, it was like a crazy amount of.
Oh, I know. I saw the messaging
I'm
go
sure
back and
all
forth.
of you, yeah, I'm sure everybody. I feel like a lot of people experience that too.
4 is a tough. I mean, 4 is an incredible level too. I feel like, right? Like because.
Well, 4, and then also because we rolled, and pretty much everybody. I mean, even me, like we all got good, especially the way James was pretty. What's the opposite of greedy?
Accommodating.
Pretty. Yeah.
Generous.
Generous.
I'm a
Thank you.
generous-
God
I'm a
damn it.
Just
God.
the
was
word.
pretty
Just
generous. It
saying those
escaped
two
me.
words together is
When
like.
I see him, it just doesn't quite fit. But
you get no generous vibes at all.
But yeah, he was pretty generous with the way we rolled stats. Where we rolled basically, we did 4d6, drop 1. We did it like 3 times, right? And we got to choose our
Pick
best.
the best set.
So all of us had good, and so all of us basically had. I mean, I think Taylor had she has 17 to remain, but most of us had at least an 18. Which I feel like when you start with an 18 in your main stat, to me at least, just
You're all
because I know
feats.
like technically the way 5e works with bounded accuracy, I'm like, cool, I can take a feat or I can take a half feat. I don't like, there's that like, for me, it's like usually if I'm at a 16, I'm like, okay, I need to take an 18 in my main stat because that's just the way the monsters dish out. And that's not how everybody plays, but I feel like it gives you that freedom. So I think that was a reason all of us were like, well, we can take a feat and be totally fine. And
And then, of course, our soon-to-be sponsor, Cobalt Press. No pressure. No, just joshing. We added all their feats, right? And so, like, it wasn't a matter of like, hey, here's the normal feats that you know and love. Like, which ones do you want? It's like,
yeah.
here's about 30 more, and you've got to go through them one by one and kind of figure out like. And then they're like, I learned, they're not just feats like that you would. So if you go to the wiki,
Is
right?
Jared's audio, or is that me?
I think it's. Did you hear me, Eric?
Yeah.
Can you hear us okay, James? Oh, the headphones are working now?
Now my headphones work.
This sounds
I
like a you
love
thing.
Discord. Here's an
This
ad for
sounds,
Discord.
this sounds like a you problem.
Love-hate. It's a love-hate.
I was just saying that like we added the kobold feats.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't just the feats that you got at face value because I was toying with one of the feats called lay initiate or lay
Lay one?
this person
Yeah.
this person like studies ley line magic. But then I talked to James and he's like, oh well, you get access to all of these ley line spells, so this entire new suite of spells, which for a ranger was not a lot of utility for me
great,
because
yeah.
just because I'll never see half of them, because I don't get over 5, and then like
You're just not doing that much.
you're not doing so.
You're just not doing that
And
much, yeah.
what's going on over there?
Oh.
Uh-oh. Maybe he's got low battery.
Just talk amongst yourselves. I'm
We're
having
just
all
gonna talk
sorts of
amongst
audio
ourselves.
issues today.
Yeah, and there was also, so like, I know you brought up the ring magic, which is one similar to that too.
Right, where you and so you got a base set of feats, but then access to an entire lore
They're
of
supposed
magic,
to be separate
basically.
spells. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really only like, I think like big main spellcasters would benefit from those.
Yeah.
The other ones that I thought were cool, because a lot of the feats were like cool, but not very impactful as far as feats go. I feel like a lot of them. But the rune magic and the hieroglyph magic, those were a unique system where you take that feat and then you get kind of like 2 runes or 2 hieroglyphs, and then those give you kind of like a passive thing and then some active things that you could do. They weren't super strong. That was actually one of the things I was looking at was hieroglyphics. But before we I want to know, Jared, what were you looking at as far as leveling up? What did you take ultimately? You took the secret thing. Okay.
It's
Semi-secret. What were some of the other feats though? What you were looking at, I guess.
So the build that I think Quinn is kind of going for is this idea of like just like bonus action, giving him some sort of advantage or extra damage, and then attacking regularly. So
Yeah.
I looked at a lot of feats that would augment that on some level. I wanted one dexterity, so that was my limiting factor because I was at 19.
Oh,
So I was like, I need to get this 20, and then let me find something cool that I can tack on with it.
Was Elven accuracy in the mix?
It was totally in the mix.
Okay.
Yeah, like the idea of like what extended range or ignore 3/4.
Extra advantage. You get extra advantage. Whenever
Oh,
you have
that's that
advantage,
one?
You get an extra roll. Yeah.
So that was on the table. There was one about max, like what is it? Plus sharpshooter. Yeah. So and then I think you ignore cover and you get max range because I'm limited to 20. With these daggers, which has been kind of a pain.
And you get a plus what? 10 to damage, 5 to damage.
If you take the negative 5 to hit, yeah. So yeah, all of those are on the table. Anything that really gave me like the +1 dex was really the deciding factor.
That's huge. Yeah.
Is that
and then for you, sharpshooter's still on the table for next.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I ended up taking one that augments Misty Step when I get Misty Step at level 5,
Nice.
and it'll grant me advantage. Because beyond level 5, I'm looking to really capitalize on advantage for some extra damage.
Just
in theory,
crit fishing for all the
because
you roll so many little dice.
I do,
but like a lot of little dice, so
Yes.
critting you'll actually do a lot of damage.
Yeah. So so that was really it. So it was the +1 dex was the big thing, and then something interesting to tack onto it.
My favourite was watching Latreni's face, who didn't take a feat. She did the ASI and put an extra 2 in wisdom, so now she's got 20 wisdom at level 4, which is extraordinary. But the look on her face when she made a perception roll and realised it was a +8 now, it's just kind of like, what? It was great. It was amazing to watch. She's not going to miss much now. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, poor Latreni, I think, had the hardest initial stat roll for all of us, right? Like her first or second when she was rolling for stats. The second one was okay, and then the third one was okay. So it was like the first one was not good though. I think it was.
Then she rolled like the best one, or was it Taylor? I can't remember. It was one. They
Taylor
both rolled
really
amazing.
well, I think.
They rolled both.
You all have, and I kind of like that. I'm not the guy that likes set players and characters to struggle. I like the idea of heroes being heroes, particularly for set campaigns that might only go. I mean, this one we're looking at probably level 8 or level 9. So for me, it's kind of the balance is still there. I mean, I'm punishing you guys pretty hard with these amazing Cobalt Press beasts, so it's not like it's a walk in the park for you. But I like the idea of powered heroes, like high-powered heroes. Be good at what you do. Pick some things that you really want to be amazing at, and go to town. I like people to excel at what they want to be good at. I think it's an important part of the game.
I did not go that route with mine. I went as utility as you can get. Grab bag.
Did you make
I think Taylor did with Esmeralda as well. I think she's got a very nice, even kind of broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever played with the high variance dice? Just like it's like a 20-sided dice, but it's got like 4 20s and 4 1s, and so like it just adds like this level of polarity to like your rolls. So I ordered them. I think Wormwood printed a few in like one of their latest Kickstarters, and so I ordered a few and haven't had a really chance to play with them. But I thought
crit more or crit miss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like statistically it's exactly the same in terms of
success or fail, but you succeed wildly and fail terribly.
Exactly. So you have 2 ends of the spectrum are really highly predominant, and so I thought it was interesting. I saw one person talking about they use it for inspiration instead. So it's an option to use as a DM's inspiration or something like that. You can roll another 20, or you roll another 20, but then this time it's on the high variance dice. So it's like there's still a little bit of. I think it's really just a cool chance for flavor, right? Because it's so critical successes and critical misses. Even I think they add something, special sometimes and something memorable that it's easy for RP especially to like latch onto.
I was huge on critical misses for a long time. And then I played a fighter, and now I hate them because fighters get so many more attacks per round. So like my level 15 fighter hits 5 times a round now, which means my dungeon master and I detest it wildly for that. He he punishes me for every 1 I roll. But of course, if I'm attacking 5 times a round, then the likelihood of me getting a 1 is far more than the druid who does a saving throw spell every round. So he very rarely gets a 1, whereas I'm getting 1s all the time. So I fall over, I fall off the cliff, I accidentally cut myself, and it's just kind of like, this is getting to be a drag. So I've changed my mind about crit fails, because having played someone who cops the bad end of that a lot, it's like, yeah,
that's why you gotta kill yourself and then have the druid reincarnate you as a halfling.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then it's no problem.
And it's great. And 1s are great. It's a reroll.
I've got a fantastic Friday night drunken game where these old men drink while I run a Dungeons and Dragons game for them, and 3 of them are playing halflings, and it's just hilarious. It's like reroll. It's just it's so wacky. It's great.
Crit fails are gone. Yeah.
Now crit fails. Are those player handbook rules that there's an opposite effect?
There's a lot of variants and that's like a classic holdover from stuff.
Yeah.
And there's just a ton of books that have
editions.
either like the crit fail happens and you just the GM is creative with, oh, you fall off or do this, or there's like crit fail tables that you can roll on, basically, that like something happens.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either. I'm also not a big fan. I mean, raw, it's only for attacks.
Yes,
I think
correct.
people do use it in skills, which I am just like, I'm not a big fan of it at all.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Especially just because the way D&D is so. I said I wasn't going to talk about Pathfinder, but like, somebody who is, they made stuff they made stuff very intuitive, and they made stuff very simple to pick up, and like everything was kind of easy. Like for skills, you don't have to like invest in any type of skill at all when you're leveling up. But like the idea that just somebody who is totally untrained, and James, you'd probably fight this anyways, could roll a 20 and just succeed wildly. Yeah, it's just too insane for me, for just too much. So
yeah, the big example is, I tell the king to resign and abdicate and hand over the ruleship to me. I make a persuade roll. Oh, natural 20. He does that, and it's just like, yeah, nah.
Yeah, I see a lot of discussion about how to say that. Okay, you rolled a 20, so he's not going to kill you, but he's not going to resist. So you have to that's a skill. That's like, I think, like an advanced, as someone who's a very junior DM, I think it's a very advanced skill to say, like, you passed the situation in the room. You were never going to accomplish what you were trying to accomplish, so you don't, so you don't suffer as bad of a consequence as you would have perhaps because of your 20, but depends on the players too, because I could see a ton of players being like, oh, well, it's not.
There's a couple of things that I do, and bizarrely, Eric's the master at beating me at my own game of this. I always say, look, it's a very high DC. It's going to be very difficult, and that's when he rolls his 27s. Oh, yeah. Okay. If it's above, and I will set DCs at 30 and 35. Which is absolutely out of the realm of a character. And if it's really obscure lore, like if it's 1,000-year-old and you just don't know, or it's something that you just are not going to be able to do, I'll set a DC in my mind and go, that's impossible. That's a 35 DC. Now, if there's some strange way that you can get around that as a player, I cast Bless, I give you guidance, I assist you, we're doing, you stack stuff up and you kind of work through it and work up some way that might happen. And we role play it extensively, and then you roll the natural 20, sure, but that's because you've done some things around that. It isn't just you've called on your deity's favor, you've done your stuff, and off you go. But I think it's just best to let people know. I'm not adverse to saying this is a high DC, and I will say it's a DC 15, it's a DC 20. Like, I'll let players know what they need to accomplish. Because it's a game. At the end of the day, you don't have to role play everything. You can actually give a number and say, roll the dice, and off you go, and here we go. And the other one that I use a lot, which is not abject failure. So part of the issue, particularly if you're doing a clue, if you're looking at a perception check or you're looking at an intelligence check, like a history or a nature or something like that, and the player's searching for information, particularly plot information, where they're investigating the plot, want to figure out what they're going. If they fail in the roll, in the past I would have gone, oh, you don't know that. And then you end up with this kind of dead zone where they go, well, we don't know what to do now. Oh, well, so I'll have a go. Oh, no, you fail as well. Okay, you still don't know that.
Yep.
So what you've effectively done is hidden the story behind an abject dice roll, that any dice roll could be a 1 or a 2 and you just fail it. And so often what I'll do is I will complicate the information. I'll throw a red herring in addition to the true information. I'll delay it. So, yep, you find it, but it takes you 2 or 3 hours, and therefore there's a consequence to that. So a failure isn't necessarily an abject failure. A failure can be a setback rather than you completely fail. And a natural 20 may not be an absolute success. It could give you an inkling about what you're going for. With a 20. Say it's a 30 DC to succeed. With a 20, you'll get a partial success. You won't get the keys to the kingdom, but the king likes your joke, and you become closer. Or the faction that was looking at overthrowing the king is going, he looks like a prime candidate. We can talk to him. So I like the dice to guide rather than dictate. With
I was just about to say that. I was like, that is really the thing with 5e, is that the dice should guide, not be the sole like storyteller, because it's supposed to be open like that. So that just comes with experience, right?
What I struggle with the most is passive perception for monsters, which is in the past, in previous editions, it used to be a contested roll. So I'd roll perception for the monsters. You guys roll for stealth. We compare who does what, and off we go. And in 5e, they streamlined it, and I actually quite like it with the passive, that the active participant rolls the stealth or the deception, and then you work on their passive insight or their passive perception and work through who succeeds. But in later levels, particularly with Pass Without Trace, you will stealth past everything. Like, majority of passive perceptions sit around the 11 to 13 mark. And once you get up into higher levels, once your proficiency bonus is hitting that +3 or so, most characters have reasonably high dexterity. They'll get +5 to a roll, and it's not hard to get a 12 or an 11 or above. And so I find that after a while, I've got to actively go back to that contested dice roll. Particularly, and it happened in our game, Taylor Esmeralda rolled cast Pass Without Trace. And in that instance, the creature was aware that there was something going on, so I was having him actively perceive. He was trying to track. This isn't just stealthing past a night camp that everyone was unaware of what was going on. I went, no, this creature's actively looking, so let's do the contest roll. And of course, the natural 20 and jumped all over Esmeralda and sprayed.
And even with that, there was only one person it detected.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, natural 20 wasn't a critical success. Didn't notice everybody. Only noticed the people that it beat on the roll, which was only one person with Pass Without Trace. So Pass Without Trace is an extraordinary spell for a level 2 spell. It's amazing. Everyone should get it.
I mean, there's a lot of ranger and druid spells that pretty much break the exploration side of the game. Like if you have a druid, a ranger, especially a druid in higher levels, like you're set. You're not worried about getting anywhere. You're not worried about, surviving. Any of that stuff that's just gone. All that stuff's gone. Which is cool. It's fun to have that, and you definitely have to spend resources, but yeah.
Really interesting, isn't it? Like and that's where those two classes should shine. Everyone has a go about rangers not being optimal in combat and things like that, but ultimately it's the exploration phase of the game and same with rogues, that you really want them to really be able to shine, and yet their abilities then somehow very much negate the challenge of actually shining in those circumstances, and I find that very tricky. So and you guys might have already noticed, I'm already throwing in long days travel, multiple encounters, different scenes, different places within the travel phase and the exploration phase of the game, just to try and give that
soak up some resources.
Yeah.
Well, but
none
also
of us are short rest. None of us are short rest casters.
That's
or
right.
whatever, short rest anything.
See, short rests I'm good with. Short rests I love. I love the idea of it's the Hobbit thing. It's like second breakfast. You get 3 of them. You get 3 little cups of teas nestled in the rocks, and you get to do a brew and feel better about yourself. And depending on the game, depending on the makeup of the group, I often make those short rests 30 minutes, not an hour. Like if I've got warlocks and fighters in the group, I'll often make it 30 minutes, just so that because warlocks and fighters need them, otherwise
every fighter.
Otherwise they just go nowhere. So if I've got a warlock that we know get their spell slots, because they only have 1 or 2 a day, give them lots of rest. Give the poor buggers a break, because otherwise the group will go, no, we're not waiting for an hour for you. And it's like, but I got nothing. I've got Eldritch Blast for the rest of the day. Give me a break. So I shorten short rests for warlock strong parties, of which I have a number of them. Kids these days, they want to play warlocks.
I love warlocks. I love warlocks. I mean, they also give you in 5e. They also give you the most from a player side. They kind of give you the most customization too. You know, there's just so many options for them. So
yeah, with your pact, your patron, and your subclasses,
and the invocations. I mean,
yeah, that's a good point.
I think something that's going to come up with our group, which hasn't come up yet, but there might be a little bit of contention between me and Tisme, just because Tisme's going to want to take short rests for her thing, but then my turrets last an hour, so sometimes it's gonna be like, no, can we just keep going? I don't want to, I have 3 spell slots, like we just gotta keep going. So that'll be interesting to see when that kind of crops up, but
sooner rather than later. I think you guys are going into a hag den. It's all on soon. It's going to be great. I'm so looking forward to this Barrow. I found the best maps. It's going to be so awesome. Really, really happy.
I did want to ask Jared something. Jared, did you have any idea I was getting you that
No.
Okay.
No.
Because it's been like the last 2 weeks, and both sessions you've been like giving me shit about it, and I've had to like basically roll deception to be like, no. Because I had that idea it was like 2.5 weeks ago. So.
I mean, well, the first session, when I realized that I was throwing these things all the time, I was like, oh man, I would really love someone to come back to me, and then I can just always have it. But we haven't gotten there yet because we haven't even gotten past the first 5 minutes of the episode in our recap. So,
that'll happen.
That's okay. That's okay. It's an RP session too, so it's not like there's a lot to really, roll through.
So much. Are you kidding me? There was
the overview.
It's an overview, right? Like so, like
me working in a tent.
So you working a tent, and we've talked about my feats. Your feat is.
I chose Ritual Caster.
Okay.
I had like 7 different options I was thinking about. Like, besides the ASI, I was thinking like, I could do 2 half feats to level 8. But my main thing was some of the main contenders were either Ritual Caster or 3 of the options would have given you this dagger, because my main thing was like getting Find Familiar off of my infusions.
Yeah.
Just basically, I want to be able to free up my infusions to kind of use them how they're supposed to be, where they're not any of them like you have to have for your build. You can kind of just change them to fit whatever the party's doing, kind of like a wizard basically in their spells. So like Ritual Caster would do that for you. I was thinking about the Magic Initiate Wizard, which would have given me that too, and then giving me some more cantrips, just to kind of mess around with. And then also
too.
And then also, multiclassing as a wizard for 1 level would have done a lot. And that would have given me a ton of more spell slots to use my thing. But then I was like, I gotta play Artificer. Like, we're only doing this for 8 or 9 levels. Like, I gotta just play Artificer to play Artificer. I was looking at Feytouched, Shadow Touch. I was looking at I was looking at 2 of the Cobalt feats. There was a close, I think it's like close magic. Do you know this one, James? It's like close cantrip user or close magic user. Basically, it allows you to anything with an AoE. You can actually do it against one person, like a melee touch attack.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then also the other one was that you can.
God, many spells would be brilliant for that.
And like cantrips you could use, because one of the things I also want for my character is, I really want like a melee cantrip, because my class is a very cantrip heavy class basically. And I have no kind of melee thing. So getting Shocking Grasp or something, that one was kind of cool. But I was also looking at the hieroglyphics, so I had a ton of options. Also skill mastery, whatever. So there was just so many. But Skilled getting my I decided that getting my infusions free was like what I kind of wanted to focus on, and then Ritual Caster, because we don't have a wizard. Just the utility of, and I'm hoping we got to find rituals somehow. So this is going to be interesting. I don't know how you're going to give these to me, James, but they just do so much. Like, they're so handy for the whole group. So
and it is a funny thing in this game setting. We've set up this Feywild thing. It's lots of Fey. It's very villager. It's very low tech. The army's bringing a lot of tech with it, and I've got this very high tech very clockwork style artificer. That's very different style. So part of the struggle I have with Bispo in this setting is trying to work through, and a lot of it I think is just going to be self-learning. A lot of it's going to be your own experimental stuff, and go, oh look, I've discovered this ritual. I've discovered this magical item. It's kind of trying to work this through, because the likelihood of you finding a
wizard spellbook,
a flintlock pistol in the middle of the Feywild is going to be, oh look, here's a television set. It's going to be very unlikely. It's going to be a bit more of this tinkering and working through it, and potentially having to return back to the village and go back to get this kind of supplies. To you're going to need a blacksmith's forge at some point. It's going to be very difficult for you to continue to do this just in the wild. It'll be hard.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Will be.
So I had that idea. For your daggers like 2.5 weeks ago. And then when I thought of that, I was like, okay, how am I going to flavor this? And we don't have to talk about this. I just
please. I think that moment's one of the key moments of the episode. Honestly. So
I guess if you want to continue the recap, then we'll get to that.
Yeah, we could kind of jump ahead. There's basically, it's basically just, Bispo and Esmeralda butting heads in
She really wanted to see in my tent. She
really did. Well, she's and it's interesting because you guys are opposite. So of course she's intrigued, I think, by how you're able to be competitive on her level magically, but then it's all mechanics and clockwork, and so you guys are butting heads, and then I thought, well, I'll get Tismé out and Will, because I already caught her walking in the water, so I thought it'd be interesting to kind of just get her out in nature again and see tease her a little bit about waking up and dancing, and just kind of get anything from Tismé, because she absolutely reveals. I feel like she does reveal a lot, but it's never consistent, so you can't ever sink your teeth into the actual narrative that she's trying to create. And so we walk out.
I have no idea what she's going with this. I'm secretly thinking she's gonna turn against you all and become the big bad. And I have no heads up that that's what's gonna happen. It's kind of so cool.
So we go out. We have a great time gathering some food. And then I think it's, trying to figure out where we stand in this plot. We get back. Tyrion, is it Tyrion? Tiernan. He's back and he's sober, and so we're all trying to put together the pieces of, this, how we got here, how he fought Amorta, and how to kind of figure out where to go next. I think that's. I mean, not to short sell the RP.
Yeah,
that was really it.
We mostly had that talk about the politics and the history and kind of the key players, and we're connecting more dots. I think Bispo was really trying to connect some dots there.
Yeah.
The same with Esmeralda. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a big piece of that section, and then we break it once we decide that we're gonna hold fast here. It's really a matter of what do we do in the meantime, and that's when you decided to bestow your gift upon the party, if I recall correctly, right? Did I miss anything in between there?
Friendship bracelets. Yeah.
So beautiful, really,
the
nice.
Flavor master of reflavoring, things and making them something different. You decided on friendship bracelets.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to remember The funny thing is, I had all of this prepared last session too, so part of me was just when are we gonna do this? When are we gonna do? I was so excited about this moment. But besides, because my first thought was okay, Jared's getting the dagger, and then I was thinking, how is this gonna work? And I think I had the thought with you of a wristband, or I was I want to trick Jared, so I was I'll hide it with giving other gifts, and I was friendship bracelets, because that's such a Bispo thing. It's make friendship bracelets. And then I had the idea for the wristband, and I was they'll just be kind of normal little ones. And then I was no, I should actually write down, and I want to personalize each one, because I think that would be perfect. So I just had a little writing session, and thought about what would be kind of cool, the flavor for their characters. And then obviously the joke for you is it's just a plain heavy pice of shit bracelet with a needle inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I honestly I put it on, and as soon as I get the blood drawn, something punctures the skin, I'm all right, well, Jared's like, this isn't a normal fucking bracelet. So it's just like, he's got something up his sleeve. So I'll just, the time will come and he'll teleport me or shoot rocket off my arm like Iron Man, or like whatever he's built, into this bracelet. And then like moments later, like as soon as you said you pull out a dagger, I was like, oh,
see, I wanted to hold off till we were in combat, but like, because I thought that would be just hilarious. Like, well, first of all, I just didn't have the patience. Like not at all. And number two, I was scared that like Quinn would just take it off. Like honestly, like I know Jared, but like Quinn
take it off. I would have said no. You try, and it's now embedded in his skin, and it's locked, and that's been done.
I mean, if we had talked about that, I probably would have just waited for combat. But I think it was partly because I was so excited about it, and I was so excited about it last week, and that we never got to it, that I was just like, fuck it, okay, he's going outside. Okay, here's this dagger.
I don't think Quinn would have taken it off because last session, he got to see your kind of like your snap, like Bisbo's snaps when he figures out he was under control again. And I think that was off-putting for him. And even in this session, right, that the insight roll that I made, it wasn't to try and figure out if people were telling the truth or really lying. It was kind of more of just to feel like, do they believe they're being genuine? And so like to roll and then realize that everyone's being genuine, or at least, the people that are telling me these things, it's kind of like, okay, like Quinn is settling into, he's kind of like, okay, like these are people that I can, trust onto some. And so he would never have taken the bracelet off, even having not known what it was, and seeing all of your mechanics, that you've used and how, how useful they are. But then to have like the returning dagger come to his hand, and obviously I was very excited and touched. And then, so in my head I'm like, well, then we'll have like a little bro trip outside, and like that'll be kind of the thing,
That was his reward, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be.
So you had no idea when the bracelet came down that it still wasn't anything.
No clue.
That's cool. That's so good.
Literally no clue. It was all just spur of the moment, and like and like me being touched and Quinn being touched was the reason he was like, fuck it, like like let's give Bisbo this thing he wants, which is lone wolves in a pack, but lone wolves together. And so it was cool. It was really cool. Really excited to throw that motherfucking thing too.
And when I first thought of it, I was like, because part of my reason when I first looked at artificers, and I think when I kind of looked online about this, that I think it's kind of an issue where, and not in this group, but maybe other groups where people expect the artificers to like give their infusions away. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, you're selfish if you keep infusions, which people really shouldn't feel like, because that is like
it's your utility. It's your
and without
class.
it, they're like pretty weak, honestly, mechanically. So there was some drawback. But when I was looking at that, like, because you're kind of the main damage dealer, a consistent damage dealer, like you're like the fighter. You know what I mean? That's the like, and then me secondary. It's probably me and you, honestly, as far as the like a fighter type of damage, not big spell damage that Esmeralda and controlling and all that stuff, but like consistent on-demand damage. Like that's like a fighter and a barbarian. That's like what our kind of roles are. Although mine's more utility, I think. But it was like, okay, he really needs a fucking dagger. Like he really needs. There's the daggers that are, you always feel like, oh, do I have enough daggers? Like I only have 5 daggers on me.
4.
And then so like when I was thinking about like extra attack is going to be horrible for that, because that's like 2 daggers around you're getting rid of. Yeah. And I didn't even think about your throwing style. Like I didn't think about that. So I was like, oh, and then he won't even be able to do extra attack because, it's broken when normally you can't draw multiple times per your turn. So, but I didn't realize throwing one gave that to you, which is cool. But then also like, just when you had to fight without your bonus action, and it was like, oh, you're getting the monster had resistance to non-magic damage, and since we're going into the Feywild, it was like that's probably going to crop up all the time. So just getting consistent magic, like me giving that to you is just going to up the damage of our party like a lot. I think like a good amount, and just getting your higher accuracy and everything. So it's pretty much just like a good
worked really good when I mind control him once more, and that way I can.
Okay, so we didn't. So we almost glossed over that, but when you threw the dagger, there was a brief moment where I was like, Quinn deserves this. So he's gonna take this dagger in the hip,
just
like
take it,
like,
right out your arm. Just okay, I deserve this.
There was a moment where I was like, okay, this is him punishing me for stabbing him twice, and I was like, that's on the nose. Like I probably deserve that. And then of course.
There was a very glimmer of just glee when I realised I'm throwing daggers away from Quinn in targets, knowing that there's such a finite amount. He's only got four of them, and I've just thrown two away.
And I was rolling so well. Oh my god, yeah,
Yeah.
it was tough. It was tough. I mean, that's a really cool creature though. I actually used something very similar where it was like, oh yeah, you seem like the big guy, use your reaction to hit that person, you know? And it's like, it changes the dynamic, I think, of a fight. Like, people are like, okay, like, I got to be away now instead of be the tank, and like, you know, I don't want to be near people, and so it was interesting.
I'm a big fan. Any time that you can get a monster or a bad to use a reaction, and that's why I actually really love lair and legend reactions as well. I think it just changes up the dynamic of a fight and makes it just far more interesting and far more exciting and unpredictable. You know, the idea is like, I know where I am in initiative order, and I know that the three of us are going before the bad guy, and so we kind of combo our abilities, and he misses his attack, and we go through it again.
Yeah,
having
1v5 is brutal.
That is really good, you know.
Yeah, lair actions really change it really mixes up combat and throws in a wildness to it.
Yeah.
I mean, how else do you have a 1v5 fight? Like, to your point, like, I feel like you almost need to cheat a little and be like, oh, he actually gets 2 attacks and they're at different times.
Oh, you have to.
You know, like, it's
just 5e is all about action economy. Like, like you can have a really tough CR monster, but if it's alone, it usually is going to get the shit kicked out of it, unless you have because you know, adding just a lower CR and adding some like equal. If you did equal math, right, with like all the CR should equal the same thing. Having like more enemies, it's just going to be tougher.
Is exponentially,
yeah, just because it's spreading out and all that stuff, and
it slows down the fight. So sometimes you just want to have the big boss guy that's hard to kill, that's fun, that does different things without the need to pad up with 11 goblins to try and reduce the action economy. You just slow the whole bloody thing down, and it's horrible. Like, you know, watching a dungeon master roll attack for 12 different minions is possibly the most boring thing for you and me. Like, I just stop describing stuff and go, well,
he tags him.
It's terrible. Yeah. It's terrible gaming. So I much prefer to. But by the same token, the other option is you just triple the hit points of your bad guys so that they can survive it. That's boring too.
That's just a meat bag at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so that's, in some ways, I think that is a weakness of the game system, and I hope all my players forgive me that I don't run monsters rules as written. You know, I kind of go, they get to do this, they do that, they use the environment, they interrupt your spell with this. You know, you just got to do it. Otherwise, I find it boring to do. I'm sure the players do as well.
I'm blessed because I don't know if it's rules as written, but I have to think someone like you, Eric, who's like, you've played a ton of games, like, it's got to be refreshing at some point to like fight a monster and it's be different, you know, than like what you've like fought 1,000 times. You know?
Yeah, I mean, Cobalt. That's why Cobalt Press is. They really do a lot of interesting stuff with their monsters.
I'm just thinking about the next 3 fights you guys are up against, and again, I can't do it now. Like, I'm looking at the monster menu going, but I've got this crazy shit that does this stuff. Like, why wouldn't I just go to that book for this campaign particularly? It's just kind of, it's a bit of fun. At some point I'll have to throw a bugbear or 2 in, or some kind of normal monster, and it'll trip you up. You'll be like, right, what's this one doing? Like, okay, let's get ready for the surprise, and there just is no surprise.
It's like, I stab it, and then what happens?
Wait, he doesn't have a 5th arm?
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does it spray on me? Nothing? What?
Yeah, but we'd kill it and then be like, that may have been an ally? I don't know. Like, that may have been a good person? Yeah.
It was a mimic.
It was a mimic. And so, I
just want to touch on something you mentioned very briefly, Jared, which is the insight check that you guys had with when you were working through who was telling who, and it was trying to figure out if they believed their own truth, which was a really interesting thing. Running this Feywild game, this game in particular has been a very interesting one that's only now starting to emerge about what's going on, which is, I've set it up and you guys pick characters that are diametrically opposed to, or they're kind of dealing with different settings within the same setting. So we've got someone who's very Fey, like from the Feywild. We've got a Hexblood Fey creature. We've got you guys who are anti-Fey. And not having the dichotomy of, we're taking, the whole group is on this side of the fence, and therefore I can present the other side of the fence as inherently bad.
Mhm.
I'm finding that really intriguing and really, really interesting, but it's also very difficult for a dungeon master to actually go, actually, no, you don't trust the Fae because they're all capricious and they're all tricky and none of them tell the truth and they'll all lure you to death. And then you've got a player there going, but I'm one and my family's not like that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And the army's terrible and they torture people. Yeah, but I'm one and we're not all like that. And it's good. The grey area in this game is amazing, but very tricky to set up in terms of plot because I can't just give you the witch is bad because I've got a hexblood going, no, we're not all bad. And I'm like, it's hard to kind of figure out who the good guys and bad guys are in this game, which is great, but tricky to run as a story. How are you guys finding that, working your way through that path?
What do you think, Eric? Go ahead. I talk on this show every day.
Yeah, no,
so.
for sure. I think gray area is always a better place to be in, and it is more complicated, but it's definitely more interesting. I don't feel like watching Quinn versus Esmeralda is really fun, because I really don't feel like Bisbo is opposed to Faye. He's just at the other end of the spectrum, almost to the extreme, but he's so accepting of everybody that he really just doesn't, obviously besides the Shadow Fae, I feel like he's the most innocent out of everybody, but yeah, like on a fundamental, magically, him and Esmeralda are opposed, where I think morally or just like faction-wise or philosophically, Quinn and Esmeralda are opposed, so that's a fun. And then Tismay's just a wild card, so
Tismay's just the big bad that we don't know has not erupted yet. Yeah, I think I hold for Quinn. I think I hold a couple truths, and then the thing that I measure each thing is like which truth is predominant here, right? And so truth number one is it's his job to figure out what the hell is going on in this forest, right? And so that's his job, and he's doing it, right? And it's becoming, it's also becoming like it's his job to like keep these other people alive because they're in a weird way part of how he figures out what's going on. But also, as they move forward and go from fight to fight and instance to instance, it's less about the idea of a party and a group becomes more and more real to him. So and then it's also he believes that the kingdom is inherently a good force and that order and like they're doing things in the best way that they know how. So all of these truths he kind of holds, and then when I roll an insight check like that, it's like, okay, it's really like, well, which truth is more predominant here? And in that moment, the truth is that he's not going to get more answers by going to the kingdom, and people are telling him that the kingdom is not maybe perhaps all it's meant and cracked up to be that he's heard of. And so and like that insight roll is just about saying, okay, like it's almost like a paradigm shift of, okay, like he is willing at this point to put one truth under another, and kind of like focus on what his goals are. And so like if I would have rolled a 1 or a 2 or a 3, it would be an interesting balance of not trying to break the party up. But I'll tell you, like, there's a moment when, whenever we leave this tavern, Quinn is probably going to try and leave another note for the kingdom. And what he puts in that note is dependent on those insight rolls, right? And so, like, if he rolls a 1, this is exactly where we're going. This is exactly what we're doing. This is exactly the situation, right? Like, all black and white to him because he reports to the kingdom. He rolls a higher insight, he builds more trust with the group, and ultimately he's like, maybe we leave out the part about Esmeralda being from the Summer Courts, right? Or maybe we leave the part out about Tismay being borderline a hag. And so it's like that's kind of I think that's what I'm just toying with. And so it's just really just kind of like, it's almost like I choose my own adventure, and I'm like, all right, well, let's just see how this plays out, because ultimately, I think we'll still follow the same path, but just how we get there, I think, kind of changes for him. And
you and Tismay have the most friction. I feel not like between you, but the most friction with the narrative.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like you're just caught between a lot of things. She's going through a crazy transformation. I feel like Esmeralda and Bisbo are more not innocent. I mean, Bisbo's certainly more innocent, and just kind of along for the ride. I mean, he has his own shit that he's leaving behind, but yeah, you definitely have the most kind of, I think, hardest job as far as role play, like what you do in your actions and having to think about your actions. Where like Bisbo, like I don't have to think about anything. Bisbo does what he pretty much fucking wants. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's ordered in his methodology as far as investigations and his technology, but he's actually pretty chaotic when it comes to
decision making and
being impulsive in decision making, and that's part of the reasons he's backed. So
and I don't.
I think James, you're I cannot hear you speaking. Oh, he hates
While he's looking at that,
That would be a mute button.
You blame Discord again. The Discord activates your mute button for you.
It's one of the joys of homeschooling when the 9-year-old decides to play her flute at high volume in the background. It's like I have to turn the mute button on to yell at my child. Anyway, I interjected maybe half a dozen times, and I thought you guys were just being rude assholes. So you guys win asshole 1 and 2.
I saw you say. I looked at you were just saying yes all the time, so I just assumed that I was on the right track. So.
It was encouraging. I thought it was encouraging.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to find Esmeralda's pick on this, and maybe we have a chat with Taylor next time about it. You know, one of the tricks I've got at the moment is you guys will be going into the Feywild, but they're not quite there yet. You know, we still have interaction with the real world, and so her fish out of water is still going to be a fish out of water. I know that Esmeralda I think she's now at the point where enough shit's going bad in the material world that it's time to report. You know, her job is to go into the material world, find out what the hell's going on, try and stop the Shadow Fae from growing. And now she's like, well, I've done that. I know everything's gone bad. This is pretty bad, and they're getting really, really powerful. Maybe it's time to go home and tell people what I've found. I think the gut reaction for Taylor to go, time to get reinforcements from our side is really, really interesting. Because you guys could do the same. You could duck back to the village. You're both kind of on either sides of the fence where it's like, let's reinforce and let's go for this. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Instead, I've given you a bunch of NPCs to kind of roll with instead, which is fun in its own way for me.
Yeah, I honestly, and so we're getting probably close to the hour, and I'm good on time, so I don't care if we go over or whatever. But I was thinking that you mentioned the direction we were going. I don't 100% know that I know the direction we're going, because the last I looked, I saw 3 ways, right? The kingdom is the least popular amongst the group. Okay, you know, no problem, right? There's the towards Amorta and getting more information and or even fighting her, which is we had that funny like kind of, you know, exchange about if you had to rank yourself on a level between 1 and 20, where would you put yourself in comparison to where we are? You know, because if they go 18 and Amorta's a beast, and we're like, you know, like those are the subtle clues that I think, honestly, not to make a joke, but like players are trying to pick up on from the DM and say like, you know, almost like, and I'll speak for myself. I would want the clues to not put ourselves in a position where, you know, like we're biting off more than we can chew, you know, and so it's like you're kind of looking,
trying to find out.
Yeah, you're trying to look.
Are we strong enough? Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's 2, and then 3 is to go to the Summer Court and petition for help and reveal kind of everything we know. And so, like I said, I feel like we're leaning towards 2, which is Amorta and Naburo, and like encountering that and like maybe putting a pin in this early, or trying to. But you know, I don't know, and I just know the kingdom was the least popular.
To, Fellowship of the Ring kind of thing, which is like, hey, Gandalf and Elrond, can't you just do it? You know, you're massively powerful. You just deal with this. You know, it's one of those things where you've kind of got to lay out a bit to the group to go, here's the path of the adventure that you may wish to go down. As far as the other guys are concerned, like as in the NPCs, I love this idea of this other cabal a generation earlier having dealt with this in the past and having lost someone, and you know they're seemingly pretty powerful, but they're older. You know, they're a little bit kind of tighter. They're a little bit changed because of their perspective. They're a little bit drunker. They're a little out of shape. You know, I kind of like this idea of them perhaps in their prime. They were a higher level than you guys, but you know, at the end of the day, it was, you know, they're extra characters to engage with, and I'm enjoying this game particularly because I'm actually liking these NPCs. I don't know what it is. I've got, you know, Romilly, and I've got Tiernan and Digby's coming, and we just met Ren, and you know, we've got these other characters to kind of interact with, which is unusual, I think, to have so many allies so soon in a game, just to kind of have them around and available and accessible. it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because of course I've got the whole other side. I've got the whole Esmeralda court cabal, which I'm working on at the same time, trying to write up characteristics and personalities and plot lines with all of those as well. So it's going to be interesting. And then I've got Bisbo's past with a whole raft of characters that have to come from that end as well. So it's a cast of thousands this campaign. It's good fun. It's always good to write.
Where is the Reeves son? We all want to see the Reeves son. Come on.
So for our viewers who are wondering the hell he's talking about, we've did a one shot to kind of get some team unity and kind of figure out how we'll play together and get a sense of the landscape and the setting. And then we've talked about it on the show a few times and probably on Running Wild a few times. And I thought it was brilliant to like get an idea of where we're at. We played a lot of these NPCs that James is referencing, and one of the shocker, the knockout stars, the Reeves son, this hoity-toity I don't know, the world owes me because I've been born into this, was played by Eric and played very well. And I thought the moments, so we were hunting a child who was abducted, and that we've alluded to a few times in the show, and there's a moment where we almost
saved it. He was like one action, one round from saving that baby,
and
then
the
it was
Reeves
lost.
son, of course, this one who was like destined for greatness and destined to run the town.
Yeah,
is kind of the one that's the most involved in not being able to, not by any fault of his own, really. And so there was this very strong character arc for a one shot that's just kind of severed because we don't know how he's reacted to this in a sense that we haven't run into him again. Yeah. Has it changed him in some way? Has it not? And
he's back. Don't worry, he's back. He's around, absolutely. And there's another tier of these characters, which is those that are supportive of the kingdom and those that are hanging around with the army. So we've got the lieutenant that you've engaged with, Lieutenant Muss. We've got the sergeant who's a bit abrasive, who's been meeting with the Reeve and meeting with the Reeve's son. There's another level of guys that I'm really, really looking forward to meeting, having you guys interact with if you ever return back to the village, because there's that still simmering away, and we've still got this. It's really cool.
We've got to at some point.
But Daddy, I get to do a lot of that.
Exactly. That's why. I hope he changed a little bit, because at least how I imagined him. I mean, he's still the same in that way, but so I just wanted to see you play him because I just think it would be hilarious. But he definitely, I think, at least what we saw, he was pretty deeply troubled by not being able to live up.
It was like his first quest, kind of on his own.
And he made that vow, basically. He made a sacred vow to the mother to rescue that baby, and just utterly fucking failed. So,
what was really interesting is when, now that we've got Ren of course was played by Latreni in the one shot. And when I imagined Ren, when I put that character together, was not at all as friendly and not at all as lovely as Latreni played her. So Latreni played her as a really open kind of counterpoint to Tiernan, who was a drunk, curmudgeonly guy when you last met him, and she just played her so nicely, which is entirely different to my concept of what Ren was going to be like. I felt that Ren was going to be very much aloof, didn't like humans, out in the woods, kind of mysterious force of nature unto herself. And then Latreni played her just lovely, kind of playing tricks with children and doing things. And so it's been really interesting to kind of go, okay, let's play an entirely different, far more open, far more friendly, far more generous with the knowledge. She's been very much like, oh yeah, well, Tiernan's a drunk and I understand, and just being really open, which is a very different NPC to normally. I don't know about you guys when you run games. It's difficult to play an outwardly giving, I'm just going to give you everything that I know NPC. It's your natural reactions to be a bit more guarded and a bit more secretive and a bit more, you get a little bit if you get the your persuasion rolls. So I think it's often nice to have someone that's just nice to you in a role-playing game and just outwardly fun. And so that's Ren. Digby, it's gonna.
I was about to say I am very excited to see Digby as well, because Jared played him also very, very interesting, very funny.
I think
what was his big thing? Collecting
the grasshoppers. He needed something grasshoppers from a spell, and I think he asked Tiernan to get them.
There's a grasshopper leg, right? And
in my mind I was like, in my mind I was like, I didn't remember the spell. Maybe it was detect magic or something like that. And I was just like, oh, I made a joke. I was like, well, I've actually collected all the grasshoppers within like 100-foot radius and something like that. And so like, he was never going to find them.
Is it because you've never played a wizard before and you're like looking through your components going, I have none of this in my inventory. I better go find them as the first thing I do in the game. So let's spend an hour getting pieces of fleece and stuff from around the surrounding area.
That is correct. I had never played a wizard, and I honestly, I should go back and watch the video because I don't even know if I gave him any sort of clever mannerisms or whatever. I think I exhausted all my spells in the first fight. And so it was like, I definitely didn't add the amount of value that I think Eric and Latrini added to Rin. But I do still have that video, so I should have to go back and watch.
Have you played a full spellcaster before?
No.
You played a bard. Well, you played a bard in your one-shot character was a bard, wasn't he? The first game I ever played with you, that one-shot was a bard.
It was a bard, yeah. I mean, that was
full spellcasters. I mean,
yeah, that was my trial run.
Yeah.
And then I played rogue.
It's tricky with spellcasters, man, to not blow your load. That's something that you definitely learn from playing a lot.
Especially in a one-shot, you're like, I'm not getting another go at this. It's like
you're just excited to play them and you want to see their abilities, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm out of spells.
Yeah. So.
Down to cantrips again. Oh, cantrips.
Yeah.
It's hard with a ranger and like what we're playing, these half casters too, because like we got to be so stingy. And for you, it's mostly Hunter's Mark, right?
Hunter's Mark's expensive, but I have a Hunter's Mark Light, which is really nice.
Yeah, favorite foe is awesome. I'm so glad they brought that in Ashes. It's so good.
Yeah, so I have a Hunter's Mark Light. So it's really, I mean, honestly, most of my spells are kind of utility based. I feel like, do I want advantage on this? Is this attack need advantage? And then also I have one that's like, do I need this person to see me? Because I can just, kind of almost do like the force wave, and then he'll look away at the exact moment, and I can cross. And so I don't know if there's anything else to, but yeah, I mean, definitely Hunter's Mark. Yeah. So I don't.
Next level, you get next levels to attacks, so then that effectively doubles your output as well. With all the trimmings you put on it, it's going to be extraordinary when you suddenly are doing. You're effectively doubling your damage at level 5, which is huge.
And then hopefully
my cantrips get upscaled to basically level 11.
Yep. It's been awesome. I mean, talk about like with your why can't I remember the name of your damn spider with the fucking helicopter? Godwin. With Godwin providing help everywhere, like whenever he can, like that saves me a bonus action in a lot of cases where if I need advantage, so I can just activate Planar Warrior, and then it's like, it's just.
And and then also Bisbo has his own Cobalt thing. My main spell, once we're at level 5, is going to be Web, pretty much. That's what I'll be concentrating on most of the time. That's his main thing. So I'll be definitely giving a lot of, I gave you ideas.
More into the game, sure.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed with my higher level campaigns is once we hit about level 7, level 8, my guys are clever enough to hit that damn familiar first. Like it's like first turn, kill familiar, second turn, move on to other things. So particularly, it's like because that getting advantage every round for 4 or 5 rounds actually makes a huge difference in combat. So I find that most high-end groups that know what they're doing, their caster will have a familiar, particularly an owl familiar, doing help. It's almost a no-brainer.
I usually don't go for the owl just because it was like something that I always did. It's like owl is pretty much the go-to familiar, but in this case, it's like I just want Goblin to stick around. He's such an important part of my character that I just need to be alive basically and stick around. So you just can't beat an owl, honestly.
I just love it. I love how versatile we've made him too. He's now a tailor with a tape measure and
yes.
Yeah.
I want to add. Can I install tailor tools into him and then?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. For me, it's let's just keep rolling. Mechanically, it's no different from you doing it. If he does it in a role-playing session, it's no different from you doing it. So I'm cool with you just loading that guy up with anything that you want. Like he's because why not? It's fun. It's good fun.
If it becomes weird, it can always change it. You'll be like, okay, You can't put a shotgun on Goblin. Well, we've learned that's
Well,
not.
he already
work.
told me I couldn't do that. I wanted to.
First aid you wanted to put
my
too,
turrets,
right?
my turrets on him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he squandered that down.
So
if we got to level 11, I had plans, but I don't think we're doing level 11. So
actually, if you think we're gonna cap out at 8 or 9, I may need to rethink my build a little bit because.
Well, you don't have. I mean, what other choices? Yeah.
We shall see. I've got very much set to level 9. Like that's kind of where I've gone. Here we go.
Oh, I'm good then.
There's always Court of the Shadow Kings that we can add, which is another Cobalt Press adventure, which is very much once you're into the echelons of the Fey courts, then. Whereas the path that we're doing is about discovery. It's about Feytouched. It's about getting to know what's going on and understanding it. The second part of the group of modules that Cobalt Press have put together is very much the political intrigue within that court, which would be an entirely different sense of game. Which and for me, I love that way. That's the way I like to play higher level games anyway. Once you hit about level 11 and 12, it is about the intrigue and it is about the politics and it is about the role play more than the combats, because the combats can just grind down to multi-session fights, which is where it gets a little bit tricky. I know our games just come out of 11 hours of the same combat. Now that we're level 15,
Really?
16, it's like 11-hour combats we're into now, which is gets a bit grindy. I'm not going to lie. So
how big is your group?
There's 6 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with 4, it's
6.
probably better, and yeah.
6 level 15 characters turns into a big fight when the DM's trying to challenge you. That's hard. That's hard to run. I don't know how many big high level campaigns you guys have run. I've only run a couple that have gone that high, and they're really hard.
I've been in some high level ones. I was in one that was like 7 people, and we got up to, I think I was level 18 or 17. Because of the deck of many things, I was a little higher.
Yep.
But the deck of many things, that'll be a future. We'll have to discuss our thoughts on deck of many things. That's a big no from James. Yeah, I think don't do it. Don't put that fucking item in the game. It's a broken item. It'll ruin your game. There's certain magic items that will just ruin your game, Jared. So never introduce the deck of many things.
Well, I've got some campaign edits.
I haven't run it in a game, but I've run it. I think I've run a deck of many things maybe 2 or 3 times my entire life, and I've been DMing for over 35 years, and those 3 are enough that I can nod to myself at sleep before I go to sleep, going, "I did that once. I don't have to do that again."
Yeah.
It's a crazy item. I mean, it's amazing, but it's complete. Yeah. It's a complete campaign.
Chaotic. If you want that in your game, that has to be like.
Post narrative.
This is the either you can't introduce that in the middle of a narrative you already have. That has to almost shape the game, or just redo it because it's just broken. Anyways,
one thing I'm looking forward to is I'm enjoying the Griffin Saddlebag. Really happy that they brought out their big book of magical items. There's another one coming in a month or 2 from Cobalt Press. They've got their 800 magical item books coming out on. I mean, I've now got my shortlist together for magic items and really keen for how that's explored within the group. That Wand of Whispers it's just message spell, but my God, it's just got such a nice vibe to it. I really like it.
It's cool. There's a lot of
of utility for
message sending and the subtle spell kind of half subtle spell thing. Cool.
Yeah, being able to do that anytime. Yeah, that's a big deal. So
it's often a tricky thing that doesn't seem forced. Oh, you find a +1 sword, and particularly forced where for you guys there is actually quite specific magical things that you guys would use that you would find useful, and rather than it just seeming a bit bloody obvious that suddenly Quinn finds a magical dagger, Well,
I gave him one.
Yeah, but and thank you. You managed to avoid that thing, but you know what I mean. Like it's to try and find items that would be usable, would be desirable, but not seem ridiculously forced. As in, this has been given to you because of your character. Is often a pitfall I find when dungeon mastering. It's to give a broad array of items that maybe you could use, maybe that you couldn't, and
or different people could use. At different times. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's always going to be a bit challenging. So I've made myself I'm a massive fan that every player should have an uncommon item by the time they hit level 5. Like for me, that's like everyone you
Oh,
should
yeah.
have, and then by level 7 you should have a rare, and then by level 10 there should be a very rare within the group. You know, you need to be able to kind of get that stuff going. But I think a lot of dungeon masters are really stingy with the amount of magic that gets put out. They're a bit concerned about power creep and about what that might do to their game. But giving out magical items is part of the fun. You know, you want your cool stuff to be raining down on you. You want it happening.
Yeah,
So.
as a new DM, that was the first thing I was told was don't give a lot of magical items because like you can shift the power creep and you won't be able to recover from it. So it's like I kind of thought that, and then I was like, well, I mean, I guess you just have to give the right magical items, right? Just give like something random, like a potion of growth, or like, you know, these are random things like that, like adds, give them some sort of option, you know, and then they can do cool things like, you know, you're stuck underwater, they're like, oh, I'll just drink this potion. You're like, okay, like that's interesting, like that's something different. So I think again, talking about like beginner DM to next level is like, what are those items, and like, you know, like the deck of many things, maybe not something you want to do as a, you know,
It's like a meta break game, but yeah. I mean to your point, like either GMs I find are too stingy or give out too much and just totally wreck CR and balance. And again, it's like you guys are saying, it's almost not even like what magic items are given. I mean, how many magic items are given. It's what specifically, if all of them are supplementing certain builds, then yeah, it can definitely go over and get crazy. But there are certain items that are just broken for their rarity too, like the helm of the teleportation helm or whatever. Yeah. It's just a broken item. There's a couple that just don't make sense as far as how they've rated them. So
weapons of warning for uncommon, I find, is like massive. You know, you get advantage on perception rolls and initiative checks as an uncommon item. It's like, whoa, that's big for low levels. It's a massive power upgrade. Doesn't seem like it, but it does do a lot. I'm in two minds about magic shops with this campaign. My kids' groups, I run after school games. They love the magic shopping part of the game. They love it, and setting things within price ranges where they have to pull their money. And it's another nice little mathematics lesson that I throw into the kids' games as well. After school, you try and put as much maths in there that they have to work out. So you're kind of working out divvying up the money and how much change they've got left for a bunch of 9-year-olds is always good fun. But I'm not sure. I'm going to struggle with you guys with that. I think I don't like the idea of this kind of haggard magic vendor walking into town going, "Wow, what can I give you?" It's maybe not.
We can't have a random weird Fey, trailer that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, kind of thing.
A fantastic encounter that you guys will hit around level 6, which will be. But that's an entirely other thing. It's not just a magic shop. You'll sell your soul for a few of those items. So, and that's kind of the plan.
I do enjoy buying magic items. I think part of it is just any items in games is because it's like a secondary progression. It's like a meta progression where, in 5e you're not giving that many really choices besides ASIs really to do anything. So it does give you kind of an extra thing, being able to select from some. But yeah, it definitely gets crazy. I'm just gonna make. You said I could make stuff, so that's what I do. I want to make you that permanent dagger because it is tempting at level 6 to kind of want to free up that, but we'll see.
It'll be good to find. And of course, hey, there's another great reason to go take down a big bad hag. Go into the barrow, fight the hag. She's sure to have something that's well.
That is true.
Yeah. If 3 of us come out, that magic item doesn't do that much good for the one person that doesn't make it out, or the 2 people that don't make it out. But so yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to figure that out. We'll have to figure out what our next plans are. I
thought our plan was to
wait for
go
Big B.
after Amorta. I thought we were getting these people
maybe we
with
did
us.
Maybe we did lock it in. By the end of the sessions, I'm usually getting a little tired and a little drunk, so I have to go back and watch them and remember what things I agreed to. It was
definitely like a no on the soldiers.
Yeah, that I got. That vibe I got.
Pretty much a no on going into the Feywild at this point.
Because we didn't know how they would react to Tisme. Was the big kind of.
Didn't know they react to Tisme. There was some worry about the timey-wimey BS. Timey-wimey, foogly, whatever. And just letting her go, and then Tisme definitely has some some weird. She wants to go, and it's almost like we can't stop her. I mean, I feel like if we just left to go to the Feywild, she would escape.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone walks to the portal.
Everyone walks to the portal, and then she's the last one and just turns around and goes the other direction.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Bisbo kind of thinks that. He's usually not too observant, but at this point, that scene where I was like, "Let me identify this wand just for 1 minute," kind of cemented.
You get a sense of where she's coming from and what her how she's gonna handle that stuff.
We talked a bit about this last week when we were chatting with Taylor about it too, where there's such a natural distrust about everything Tismay now. It's like, don't use that one, Tismay, but I kind of am going to, and it's like, let me touch it. I totally agree. But I'm going to do it anyway. It's
she's like casting as she hands it over. You know, you're like, hey, like no, like stop it, like
I'm totally going to be a cleric of life and light. Oh, I just did this other thing that it's so hilarious.
She's telling Tiernan like what happened, and like we know she left out many important facts, you know, and she's struggling to tell the right facts as a player and as a character, and it's just like, oh no, it's like you're trouble, like just absolute chaos.
Yeah. It's lies through omission, and I love it because she goes, I just don't want to have to make a deception roll because her charisma is 8. It's 7. It's terrible. Yeah. It's like, it's so bad. And so she's like, I'm not going to do well at lying. So I'm just not going to lie per se. I'm just not going to tell anyone anything and just do what I want to do. It's like,
well, it's working.
One way to play.
Yeah, it's working.
It is working.
Well, I think that's pretty much wraps it up. Did we leave any important details out? Is there anything? Bixby's on his way.
We didn't talk any specific narrative plot that we, uncovered, but
right.
I mean,
there's a lot coming. Like it's kind of, and I love. I'm not going to let you go too soon. I am enjoying that there is 4 aspects to lore. There's 4 pools of knowledge that you guys are bringing together beautifully, and it all comes back to your backstory, which is really great. Having Bisbo with the high intelligence and the highest capacity to understand arcana, history, nature, and also having him as a character that's literally done the most research on the Shadow Court. You are the one that's gone through all the books and you've done the research on it. You're the one that knows the most out of the Shadow Court, but from an entirely non-Fey perspective. The least Fey out of the 4 knows the most about what's going on, which I think is amazing. And then how we interpret that information based on your book study as opposed to living knowledge is really, really interesting. So I'm really much looking forward to, because of course Esmeralda lives it. So for her, it's all about the personalities and understanding the exact people that are responsible, whereas yours is more of a theoretical
pure
knowledge.
Academic.
So ironically, you know more about hags than Esmeralda, which is than Esmeralda and Tismay, of which one's a Hexblood and one's a Fey. You know more about hags than that. So I'm finding that an interesting thing to kind of work through because
Well, wait till I get these books from Bigsby, man. That's what like wait till I get those books. That's
This is when you multi-class Warlock without realizing it, by the way.
Well, my charisma's 9, so
you do love Warlocks. So your charisma is
start reading those books.
It is really bad charisma though.
I run a lot of Call of Cthulhu, and of course, in that game, you read a book, you go insane, and you give your soul to someone else. So, I'm happy to introduce that into our game. I think it'll work well.
Great.
I'm happy to drive you insane.
Wait, tell the character who's like the most likely to read every book we come across.
Yeah,
that's right.
Awesome.
A bit of knowledge. It's a big cool thing.
And we didn't really plan. I feel like we didn't do a ton of planning on backstories. We did talk about like where everyone would be from, and I think there was a natural desire to have everyone from something different. That was really the extent of it, and I like how everyone came from something. I think was kind of just like organic, which is kind of cool.
Having one person from the Fae, which is a big deal. I feel like, especially in this game, like super impactful. Because if we didn't have that one person, the whole game would be different. Like it would be completely like through the looking glass. Like none of us know what's going on at any time, pretty much, besides our snippets of knowledge. And then Tismay is just kind of neutral, but she just has such a strong narrative with her transformation. And then me and you really have, I mean, we're both outsiders. Like, I think Bisbo sees that you're kind of an outcast a little bit, but we have like extreme, and I don't know too much about your backstory because you're pretty guarded too. but we have like pretty different perspectives on the kingdoms. Like, you know, just socio-politically. I mean, just because of our race. I mean, racially, really, it's really racial.
Yeah, if we had been like, we should get the kingdom involved, we would probably have very two opinions about how to do that, right? Like, I'd be like, well, I'll just go report it to my superior. You're like, or we don't talk to the army, maybe we talk to like a scholar in the kingdom or someone like, you know, like not in the government, you know, and it's like, yeah, like, you know, that's interesting, you know.
What I find really, the setting lends itself to that too. I don't know if the capital, Feywild in the Grand Duchy of Dornick, which is where we're setting this, is so massively different to the cities of the East, the industrial cities of the East. You know, it's very much a Versailles guarded, beautiful place of knowledge and understanding and peace and prosperity, as opposed to these nasty industrial militarized cities to the East, where it's much harsher living conditions and the machines of war are grinding, and so to try
on the front line, right? They're like,
Mm-hmm.
And you're from the
Feywild.
capital. Yeah, you are like from the capital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we just have that. We even was saying within the kingdom, we're almost from two different worlds.
Yeah.
We are from two different worlds.
Yeah, I'm like a fairy princess. It's like only lived in the castle, you know, and only seen what the castle wanted to see, you know.
And I literally grew up in the gutter. Literally.
Yeah.
It's quite the ironic thing, isn't it? The Bisbo is the worldly traveler out of the entire four of you, you know. So you've grown up as the fairy princess. We have a fairy princess that literally grew up in the Court of Roses and didn't leave. And then we've got this villager who's never gone outside of a village. And then we've got Bisbo, man about town. That in your back. I mean, like Eric, when you write backstories, it's crazy. And then I spent a month in this city, and then I moved to that city, and then we did a bit of time over here, and then we went back here, and then it's kind of like, okay, so I've got you living in literally 5 different cities within the same kingdom before we start the game. So I love it. It's so cool. But the naive Bisbo is you've been around the most, which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition about the character.
Because he's been places, but he's never, you know, the kobolds are so low on the totem pole, you know, that he wasn't let in most places. Like, he couldn't just go into a tavern probably, right, without somebody with him. And then there's other stuff about his backstory we haven't revealed yet, why he was actually he was extremely isolated at some points in his life. So so while he has traveled, he's also, you know, he's never had alcohol before we got to that tavern. So it is a weird kind of juxtaposition.
It's great. Sure. It's great. And no social skill either. So everyone's correcting your social graces, but even though you've been around dodgy bars and sewers and back alleys and places all across the world. Very interesting.
My whole influence is from a classic alcoholic PI, kind of toxic masculinity, you know, like that. Yeah. That's his whole that's what he's like, the only person that's like shared with it, like human. So that's pretty much where he's getting most of his like pop culture stuff from. He's lived a world of academics, but that's like society for him is what that guy was selling. So
everyone must be like this guy.
Yeah.
You know, the quest to find the mentor who's the alcoholic PI who's somehow trapped in the Feywild. It's like, I've been pondering that scene for a few months now, going, where the fuck's this guy? Like, where have I put him? Where has he been? Like, how does this even work? You know, do I just play the sultry jazz music and go, hey kid, where you been? You know, it's like, how do you
I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect at all. I'm not expecting to find him necessarily. Like, I don't even know when we would find him, because that's like, you know, he was taken by the Shadow Court, so who knows like what the crap is happening with him.
It's great. It's just awesome. I love it. But you know, you've got to put those things into the game. You can't write them into a backstory and not have them appear at some point. So I'm looking forward to unveiling all of those. The trick is you know, I've probably got maybe 4 or 5 or 6 maybe massive reveals from your backstory that from all collectively your backstories.
Mine? From all of our backstories.
Collectively, where you go, right, this is the thing. Yeah. You've got to be able to foretell it at least a little bit. You've got to be able to mention it, and whether that's a player mentioning it or you're mentioning it, you've got to breadcrumb it so that people know what the hell you're talking about. Otherwise, you go, it's me all along, and everyone goes, who the fuck are you? And the audience has no idea what you're talking about. And so that's a big chunk of time, and then you've got to build a scene that makes it worthwhile, and then you've got to have that reveal impact on the game. So it takes some time to kind of weave them in well.
And the player has to kind of know when to do it. Because there's moments where there's always moments where I'm like, is this it? No, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel. And so I don't know if it's when the time comes for whatever Quinn's got or Bisbo or whoever got it'll be a matter of is this you almost had, is this the moment where this needs to happen? And I don't know how or if to communicate that to James before or if that's James will message me and be like, hey, this is a setup, but then he kind of becomes a little less authentic then, I feel like, too. So it's it's tough. It's a tough balancing act, I feel like.
It's interesting. We're going back to our very first chat we had in episode 1, which was how do you reveal backstory and when do you reveal your character secrets and these plot lines for individual characters and some coming to the fore and others building up, and I think we're certainly pushing Tismay's storyline very hard, and I think that's developing, and it's developing now, I think, to a point where we're coming to a nexus within that story where Tismay as a player, Latrini as a player is making the decision about how does Tismay react and what's going to be her big, because you get a sense that there's a big decision to be made for her character, which is going to be really, really great. And then so now is the point within a storytelling environment where you start to see the next one to come through. After that, you start to reveal other little bits and pieces. So, you start dropping names for characters that are going to affect specific other characters' backstories as they start to come through. So, I have to look back on the episode to figure out who that was and who that was for. But you got to start doing it, which is fun. It's part of the fun, long narrative storyline that you do.
Yeah, I think Quinn is the one that I know the least about.
Makes four of us.
Tismay's guarded, but she's almost being forced to be the center of attention. But Quinn is there's just nothing coming out of Quinn. He is so solid, and that not bad way. I mean, because I know it's your character, and there's a lot of stuff going on there, and with secrets from yourself too. Yeah, angsty.
Quinn's one session of I'm going to reveal anything about my backstory was in the first 40 minutes of the game, and it lasted for 15 minutes, and it's never been touched on again because it was with the lieutenant. It was a chat between an NPC and Quinn before he even met the group, and it's just been a case of no one else knows about Quinn. It's just that one guy and the whole of the story, which is really interesting. So,
and there's some things I don't know about Quinn. I purposely just gave James I said, these are things that I think are interesting, and you make them work if they work, and if they don't work, it's not monumental. It doesn't dramatically affect if they don't come through, but it's opportunity, and that's all it is. And it's just we'll see what happens.
Oh, they're coming.
Yeah.
Now that we've had our kind of bro troll, I think Bisbo's gonna try to start. He's too curious. It's time. Now that he feels like you wearing the bracelet, you wearing the friendship bracelet, he feels like he has full reign now to interrogate you. So this will be fun, I think, coming up.
Good to know.
I'm suspecting there's probably an Esmeralda Quinn scene where she's going to front you as well. She's going to go, what's your problem, pal? I get a sense there's going to be one of those coming up at some point where.
Oh shit! Maybe I need to do
more
work.
And I will be recording it.
Yeah. Shit. I need to
10
do more work.
I know.
Sure. Yeah, it's tough life.
Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it. I think. We had a really good talk today. I don't know that there's a couple of topics that you guys covered before I even brought them up. So I'm all out of stuff. Do you guys have anything?
Always
else
enjoy. Me too.
Anything else you want to unveil or discuss?
I get my 25 minutes out of the house now and out of lockdown. We get to walk within
awesome.
5 kilometers of your house for half an hour. It's going to be great.
Good for you. You enjoy that. How many more days left in lockdown?
It's extended for another week, so we've got at least another week to go. My sense is it'll be a while. Not as bad as the 119 days we did last year. That was hard.
Yeah, it's ravaging a lot of US as well right now. Well, that's not what we want to get into at the end of this episode. So
No.
yeah, get you some fresh air, stretch your legs, enjoy homeschooling. Thank you both for joining.
Taylor's going off on chat right now about.
I haven't clicked it. I can't click it because if I click it, we'll just completely lose all the images that I'm recording on OBS. So I'm sitting here watching it like flash, and I'm like, oh man, someone's. She's had a couple of NyQuil and she's in a glass of wine and she's probably ripping it back there.
Full Shiraz, full bottle of Shiraz.
I expect. So I will leave us on this parting note. I expect the exotic dancer thing to rear its head again, whether it's from Quinn.
Who did you say that to? Who did you?
I said it to the owner of the establishment that we're in. Yeah. She was asking where we from and what we do.
Yeah. And nobody else was around, right?
Part of it was altruistic in the sense of that, like, she's an Eladrin, and like I don't want broadcasting that there's like random Fae running around, especially if we just got an interface spell. But there's like a dark person inside my head that was like,
oh yeah, there was some aggression there.
She's an because I'm always like jabbing, like there's now this contest between us, and so I was like, yeah, like what's something I can kind of say that's not super bad, but like I don't know, like maybe fits, and it was just like that was just the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, man, I hope that
was hilarious.
I hope that's got some legs and wasn't super offensive, and I was kind of like Quinn, like, you know, was happy with himself after he because I don't know, he has no personality, so yeah, so he was just like, yeah, got her a good one there.
Then you'll remember how Bisbo called him a dame and they got super offended. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quinn will deny if this comes back to him. So, but anyway, parting thoughts for the crowd and for Esmeralda, who may be watching blowing up chat.
Just eyes laser beamed on the comment, and I'm just going, there's payback for that at some point. You couldn't actually hear it. She has to play a character, but there'll be payback. She'll get.
I feel like it's one of those anime tropes where like she was like achoo, like she like, you know what I mean? Like she could like sense somebody.
Yeah,
she could sense Quinn was throwing shade on
absolutely.
her. As
Esmeralda absolutely.
Her face senses. Yeah.
She like snaps over to the kitchen, like she like looking through the walls, like she knows something was said about her. Yeah. She
knows on a deep. And that was such a burn that the weave was there was ripples on the weave. So.
The space-time continuum, gotcha. That'd be good. Yeah.
Well, you gentlemen have a good night. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for anyone that's watching or watches in the future. We hope you can catch our shows every Monday night. We start at 8:30 Central, which is, you know...
Have a guess.
5:30 Pacific time?
It's 5:30 Pacific time. No, it's not 3 hours, is it?
No, you guys start 7:30 Central.
No, 8:30 Central. 8:30 Central.
6:30.
6:30 Pacific. Which equates to 11:30 a.m. in the next day.
The day after.
The next day. So, bam, crushed all your time zones better than you guys know. So that's my win for the night. Have a great night, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Enjoyable Wednesday afternoon.
Tuesday, you maniac.